Welcome back to Basin Motorsports. Have you been looking for a set of hood louvers but you're unsure of which ones are the best to buy for your vehicle? Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about the science behind hood louvers, and I'll give you my recommendation of what you should look at for your vehicle. So when you talk about best, it's always subjective. So today we're going to keep that between three different categories. One is going to be looks, one is going to be function, and one is going to be price. So behind me I have a simple diagram of how a hood louver is actually going to work. So quickly we're going to go through that just to help set up what kind of choice you have to make for your vehicle and what makes sense. So this simple diagram here is just a basic vehicle. So what you'll see is that you actually have a hood louver installed. Cold air will come in through the radiator itself, and it will actually go up out for hot air, transfers the hot air in your air to water radiator. The hot air has an escape point up and out of your engine bay. Typically without a hood louver there, what you'll find is you have a high pressure buildup here in the engine bay. Of course, the engine itself, because of the exhaust, is also a heat source. So you have just a lot of heat built up here. You also have airflow that goes under the vehicle. You have airflow that goes over the vehicle. So the two things you'll find is that by adding in a hood louver, essentially a heat extractor or an escape point for the heat, you'll increase your cooling because now your radiator does not have to work against the pressure built up here or against the cold air and the hot air. You don't have to push the hot air in the engine bay. You can actually evacuate it out into this low pressure space above the hood and at the base of the windshield. With that explanation of how a hood louver works, let's look at a simple graph comparison in a wind tunnel of different options available out there. Now what you'll see on this graph is at the far left there's an OE hood which has no hood louver attached. This is our baseline. Obviously you see there is no change, there is no performance gain by adding in a hood louver there. Next to the OE hood, the next category is an open hole or a hot rod stamped. On this graph you can see that they have an increase in cooling capacity and also downforce or pressure differential there, which means that they are actually flowing hot air out. Not much better than an OE hood, but it is an increase. Beyond that, you can see an HVAC floor vent. Now literally this is something from your home improvement store that you might find for your home that just goes a heat register vent for your floor. Now beyond that, you'll find a competitor to the brand I'm going to recommend to you as the best. They are better than the open hole, the hot rod stamped, or the floor vent, but in this comparison at the three different speeds, the 80, 100, and 120 miles per hour, they still don't have the same flow as the brand I'm going to recommend. Now on the very right side of the graph, what you'll find is a brand called Race Louvers. Now they have three different configurations that they've noted here in their testing. One is the RS Street trim, one is the RT Track trim, and one is the RX Extreme trim. Now on the right hand side you'll see the race louvers in the various configurations, the three options between street, track, and extreme. And they also have in there with and without grille blockers. So in the grille blockers themselves, what they are is a restriction they have put in the front grille to reduce airflow in there. With the ability to now have extra cooling capacity because you now have this escape point in your hood louver, your radiator doesn't have to work so hard, and you can also decrease the airflow into the radiator, adding downforce, and basically you're adding restriction for airflow against the car to help push it down on the front. By adding the grille blockers, you're actually reducing the cooling of the car, but it's still going to be more than it was from the OE system. And by adding the grille blockers, you're actually adding downforce because you're adding in something for the airflow to flow against on the front of the car. So you'll see in the options there, they'll have the three options with and without the grille blockers, just to show you that adding in the grille blockers actually increases the downforce against the front of the car. You reduce the lift basically by evacuating the hot air out of the engine bay, but you also increase the grip because you're putting in a restriction to help push against the car and push it down towards the ground. Now, judging on the function of the wind tunnel testing, it's clear that on the right-hand side of the graph, Race Louvers offers the most function of the options available there. Now, the question is, with the three options of Race Louvers, you may not know which one is going to be best for your vehicle. So let's talk about how to choose which option of race louvers is going to be best. Now what you see behind is some empirical data there showing you how to choose what you have. So what you have available here is, on the left is going to be the horsepower of your vehicle from 0 to 200, 200 to 350, 350 to 500, and 500 plus horsepower. Now you can just think of this as at the crank versus at the wheel. And it really doesn't matter if you think of wheel or at the crank. Either way, this will give you a rough estimation of what you need. Now your three categories are obviously your RS Street, your RT Track, and then your RX Extreme over here on the right hand side. So you notice in here, these are all in square inches. So this will be a length and a width, or a length and a height based on the vehicle itself. So if you're looking at something like this for the 0 to 200 category in the street, they recommend it for 200 square inches for 0 to 200 horsepower. In the RX or RT, you're looking here at 250 square inches for a street or drag car, and then for straight autocross and always open track, they're looking at 300 square inches. Now if you're pushing around 500 plus horsepower, the street car alone needs at least 350 square inches. A street drag car or maybe a limited autocross car is 400 square inches, and then an autocross / open track car is about to be about 700 square inches. Now each of these options do offer a performance advantage over competitors. So the RS Street Trim, you're going to look at a 200 increase in downforce on the front end and 150% change or increase in cooling capacity. The RT Track Series, 300% plus downforce increase plus 180% cooling capacity increase, and the RX Extreme Series is going to be 440% downforce increase plus 230% increase in cooling capacity. Now, as everything's listed in square inches, let's go over to an actual vehicle that has a set of race louvers on it, and I'll show you how to measure what you're looking for so you understand what square inches actually looks like on a vehicle. Okay, so this vehicle in front of you is a 1980 Ford Mustang. Now it does have the center and side louvers from race louvers on there. The center vents alone are a 12-inch tall by 8-inch wide, so each one of these grills or each one of these vents is actually going to be 96 square inches. So you can almost think that these are 200 by themselves. Now each on the side is going to be a 14-inch tall by 5 inches wide. These are going to be 70 inches on each side. So between these two, you've got almost 200, and then you have 140, so just under 340 square inches between these two sets. Now this set is the RS Street Trim, and I'll show you why I chose going with these versus the other two options. All right, so if you look at our matrix here of what we're looking for, right now the car probably is somewhere in this range for horsepower, but the goal for the car is to get up to here. So somewhere in here is where I want to be at. At that point, you need to choose where your application is going to be. The Mustang those race louvers are on now is a mix between street and autocross and track. It's probably never going to be an open track car, but I would like to take it for autocross. So the categories, you have the RS, the RT, and the RX. So knowing that I'm going to be in goal of this under 500 horsepower, I can choose between these three categories. Now, if I was only a street car, I'd be just looking at 300. If I was only a kind of a mixed street track car there, and then you have basically an open track or an always race car, never street. So what is my choice was, it was about 340. So being that I wanted to only mix in street and a little bit autocross, this was the best choice for me. Now the third category I had mentioned early in the video was looks. Now I think everybody's got that as a subjective option. I find the race louvers to be a fantastic look on the car themselves. They are the best for function. They've been proven in a wind tunnel. They have multiple options, and you can always get them in a bare finish with no powder coat, or you can get them in a black powder coat, which I just showed you on my car. So hopefully that explains why I chose race louvers as the best option for a heat extractor or a hood louver to choose from. They do have 3 options, and using this matrix here, you can help define what fits best for your project based on application and horsepower. So with that, guys, check out the link in the description over to Race Louvers. You can see if they have an option specific to your vehicle. If not, one of their universal sets may be perfect for your vehicle. And if not there, give them some contact, let them know that Basin Motorsports sent you over, and check out what they have available. They may be able to make you a complete custom option exact to your specifications for exactly what you need for your project vehicle. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.